Have you ever felt like there's something inside you that's dormant? Something ancient, perhaps forgotten, but that has never stopped pulsing? Then pay attention, because what's about to be revealed isn't a concept. It's a calling so profound that it transcends time, space, and everything you believe to be true about yourself. And this truth begins in the place where almost no one dares to enter: silence. Thoth, the sacred scribe, the master of cosmic laws and guardian of eternal secrets, said that all that exists began in silence. Before light, before form, before sound, there was only primordial silence, and not the ordinary silence you know, but the living silence, the one that pulses behind every thought, every emotion, every heartbeat. It is there that everything is born, and it is there that everything can be transformed. But almost no one goes there, because the silence is frightening. It doesn't distract, it reveals. And what it reveals is what you've spent your entire life trying to avoid: yourself. But Thoth taught that it is precisely in this encounter with the inner void that you recover your original frequency, the pure vibration, the one never corrupted by fear, doubt, or guilt. But why have we forgotten this vibration? Why does it seem so distant today? Perhaps because from a very young age we were taught to seek outward everything that only exists within. We were conditioned to believe that the external world is more real than our own energy field. And so, we began to live in a reality built on the absence of ourselves. We build mental castles on unstable vibrational foundations. And when these internal structures collapse, we call it a crisis. But it's not a crisis. It's truth wanting to emerge. Thoth saw this happen in every civilization, in every cycle of spiritual decline. He observed that when man strayed from silence, he lost himself. Not because he stopped thinking or acting, but because he no longer knew where his thoughts came from, nor why he acted. He became reactive, fragmented, trapped in a constant noise that disconnected him from his origin. And in this disconnection, all vices, all wars, all imbalances were born. Silence ceased to be a bridge to truth and began to be interpreted as absence. But it is not absence. It is formless presence. But there is a gap, a point of return, and this gap is still alive, still pulsating, still accessible. It begins when you, for a moment, decide to stop, not to run away, but to listen to what vibrates when everything is silent, to listen to what still exists even when all thoughts disappear, to listen with your chest, not your ears, with your field, not your mind. And in doing so, something changes. Subtly at first, a relaxation, an expansion, a wordless remembrance, as if you were returning home, but without knowing where that home is. Thoth called this 0 point, a vibrational state where nothing is stuck in the past and nothing is projected into the future, a place where you simply are. No masks, no noise, no effort, just presence. And it is from this presence that true vibration is born, because it is there that the ego dissolves, that the characters are silenced, and that the essence takes over again. At this point, there is no need for control, because everything is already in harmony. Everything is already in its right place. But here arises the first question that should burn within you. Why do we live so far removed from this state? Why is it so difficult to remain in it, even when we find it? Why does it seem to slip through our fingers as soon as it's touched? The answer, according to Thoth, lies in the way we were shaped. Since childhood, our energy has been programmed to be agitated, to fear, to run, to produce. Little by little, we learned that silence is dangerous. That to stop is to fail. That to feel is weakness. That to slow down is to become useless. But all of this is a lie. Lies so well told that they have become beliefs. And these beliefs, over time, have become frequencies. Dense, repetitive frequencies that today sustain what you call reality. But Thoth never stopped writing. Even as humanity drifted away, he continued silently recording the keys to return, not with magic formulas, but with vibrational principles. Maps invisible to anyone with eyes to see. And one of these principles is simple and brutally true. Everything you feel, you emit. And everything you emit, you attract. This is the game. This is the cycle. This is the prison. The prison has no bars. It has patterns. Emotional patterns that repeat themselves. Situations that recycle. Different people, the same energy. Different places, the same weight. Because the internal field has not been modified. So stop now. Take a deep breath and feel. Not what you think, not what you want, but what you vibrate. Because that's what's creating your reality, even if you don't realize it. And if your vibration is disconnected from your essence, everything around you will be too. You can change cities, relationships, professions, but if you don't change your frequency, everything will repeat itself. Because the scenario changes, but the field remains. And the field is what commands. It's what shapes, attracts, and repels. But here's the key. Vibration isn't static. It can be reorganized. And this reorganization begins in silence. Because in silence, there is no lie. In silence, there is no distraction. There is only truth, vibrating naked within you. And that's why the ancient masters spent hours, days, even weeks in silence before uttering a single sound. They knew that a word spoken from chaos only generates more chaos. But a word spoken from presence can reorganize the entire universe. Because sound, when born from true silence, is not just sound. It is code. It is vibrational geometry. It is a wave carrying pure intention. Thoth said, "The word only has power when it arises from true silence." And this is where it all begins. You don't need to understand this intellectually. You need to feel it. You need to allow yourself to stop for a few seconds and realize that even without thinking, even without doing, you continue to exist. And that is already a miracle. Because the simple act of realizing that you are more than your thoughts is the beginning of liberation. Not an external liberation, but a vibrational one. A liberation that begins with presence and manifests as power. True power. Not the kind that controls, but the kind that radiates. Now imagine what it would be like if, from this state, you emitted a vibration, a sound. Not just any sound, but a sound charged with presence, with intention, with consciousness. Imagine what this could reorganize within you, in your body, in your mind, in your field, in your destiny. Because everything that is disorganized outside is merely a reflection of what is misaligned within. The right sound, emitted from the center, has the power to restore this order. Not by imposition, but by coherence. Because everything in existence seeks resonance. And what vibrates in truth attracts truth. You don't have to imagine. You'll feel it. But not yet. Because before revealing this sound, Thoth asked another question. A question that cuts through any resistance. Are you truly ready to stop being who you've grown accustomed to being? And this question resonates deeply. Because it's not about abandoning the past. It's about abandoning the frequency that sustains you. And that takes courage. Courage to lose the familiar. To step out of your vibrational comfort zone. To stop feeding what no longer represents you. And in doing so, something begins to change. Not from the outside in, but from within for everything. This question isn't about identity. It's about frequency. Because every identity is sustained by a vibration. And changing your vibration inevitably means changing who you are. This is frightening. This is transformative. But it's also liberating. It liberates from repetition. It liberates from control. It liberates from the fear of not knowing who you'll be later. So stop trying to understand. Feel it. Because what follows isn't theory, it's vibrational practice. But to do so, you need to completely silence the noise of who you thought you were. And that starts now. Not tomorrow, not after you finish this video. Now. Close your eyes, breathe, and listen. Not to external sounds, but to what vibrates in the void between your thoughts. It is there, exactly there, that sound begins to form, not in a rush, not with effort, but like a whisper emerging from the essence, a sound that carries memory, that carries origin, that carries you. And when it comes, you will understand why Thoth guarded it for so many centuries, and why it can only be revealed to those who have learned to listen without ears. Because true sound is not heard, it is felt. And when you feel it, nothing will ever be the same. Because in that instant, the vibration that has always been dormant within you will finally awaken. And the entire universe will hear it, even if you don't say a single word. Have you ever felt like there's something inside you that's dormant? Something ancient, perhaps forgotten, but that has never stopped pulsing? Then pay attention, because what's about to be revealed isn't a concept. It's a calling so profound that it transcends time, space, and everything you believe to be true about yourself. And this truth begins in the place where almost no one dares to enter: silence. Thoth, the sacred scribe, the master of cosmic laws and guardian of eternal secrets, said that all that exists began in silence. Before light, before form, before sound, there was only primordial silence, and not the ordinary silence you know, but the living silence, the one that pulses behind every thought, every emotion, every heartbeat. It is there that everything is born, and it is there that everything can be transformed. The part one kept as before. But when you begin to realize the power of reorganizing your vibration, something uncomfortable happens. A truth presents itself like a mirror that can no longer be ignored. You weren't taught to vibrate high. In fact, you were carefully trained to do the opposite. From the earliest years of your life, without realizing it, you were conditioned to carry a dense vibration. And this vibration wasn't generated spontaneously. It was programmed. Thoth warned that the forces shaping humanity are not interested in bodies, but in fields, because it is the vibrational field that determines the level of consciousness, and a dense vibrational field generates limited thoughts, repetitive emotions, and predictable behaviors. A being that vibrates low doesn't question, it survives, and those who survive obey, not out of fear, but because they lack sufficient energy to create a new reality. You might think this statement is an exaggeration, but observe your own routine. Notice how fear is subtly introduced into almost everything. News that triggers panic, relationships based on jealousy and insecurity, an educational system that rewards obedience over creativity, a culture that values extreme productivity, even if it costs your mental health. This is no coincidence. This is conditioning. When a child feels anger and is taught that anger is wrong, they don't learn to deal with that emotion. They learn to repress it. And everything that is repressed becomes a vibrational blockage. When someone feels guilty for making a mistake and believes that this makes them a bad person, there is no evolution, only stagnation. Guilt paralyzes, and guilt is the invisible cement of every vibrational prison. Sadness, when not understood, becomes a burden, and this burden vibrates. You can remember simple moments when this happened to you. When you were sad and told you needed to be strong. When you were afraid and told you were exaggerating. When you wanted to say something true but held back, afraid of not being accepted. These moments seemed small, but each one left a mark on your field. Marks that added up. And over time, they began to vibrate through you, to the point where you no longer knew if it was you who was feeling it, or if you were just repeating the emotions you were taught to have. Thoth said, "The field doesn't lie. The mind can create justifications, stories, and excuses, but the field always reveals a being's true frequency, and this frequency becomes a magnet. It attracts, repels, distorts. Everything you experience outside is a reflection of the frequency you carry within. This may seem cruel, but it is also liberating, because if your reality was created by a programmed field, it can be reconfigured by an awakened field. But there's something almost no one realizes. Vibrational programming doesn't just happen through pain. It also happens through distraction. The excess of stimuli, tasks, and never-ending responsibilities creates a state of silent exhaustion. And when you're exhausted, you don't question. You just react. You repeat. You consume. And all of this keeps your frequency vibrating in low cycles, from which it seems impossible to escape. Now imagine someone who wakes up, grabs their phone before even taking a deep breath, and sees a sequence of images and sounds that trigger comparison, fear, and haste. Then they rush to get ready, eat whatever they don't have, and head out to face traffic, pressure, goals, and demands. You get home and turn on another screen, more information, more stimuli. more emptiness disguised as content. Where is the silence? Where is the space to listen to your own vibration? It isn't. Because this person has been trained not to feel. Because if you do, you begin to realize you're trapped. And if you realize it, you might want to leave. But Thoth said that every prison has a breach. And this breach opens when consciousness returns to center. When, even in the chaos, you can stop for a second and say, "This isn't mine. I don't need to vibrate like this." That moment is the spark. And if you feed that spark, it becomes a flame. Flame that begins to dissolve the layers of frequency that don't belong to you. This process isn't easy, because you start to lose touch with things and people that once seemed normal. You start to feel discomfort in places where you once felt comfortable. You start to perceive noises where you once saw silence, not because the world has gotten worse, but because your vibration has changed, and everything that no longer resonates with it starts to feel strange, uncomfortable, heavy. This is the price of vibrational freedom. You begin to move out of a collective fear-based realm and into one where the truth can no longer be ignored. And the truth isn't always comfortable. It demands choices. It demands responsibility. Because once you know that your vibration creates your reality, you can no longer blame the world. And that changes everything. Thoth said that the hardest frequency to abandon is that of victimhood, because it gives us comfort. It gives us identity. It gives us narrative, but it also traps us in the same vibrational cycle. Because as long as you vibrate as a victim, you attract something that confirms it. Unfair situations, people who diminish you, lack of opportunities. Everything resonates with this frequency. But the moment you say, "Enough," not angrily but clearly, that's the breaking point. That's when the programming begins to weaken. Because you've chosen something different. You're no longer repeating. You're creating a new vibration. And every new vibration reorganizes the field. And every reorganized field creates new possibilities. What you begin to realize, little by little, is that the universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you vibrate. And what you vibrate is what you truly feel, even if you say otherwise. There's no point in saying you trust if fear vibrates inside. There's no point in saying you're grateful if you feel a sense of loss inside. The universe doesn't respond to words. It responds to the vibration behind them. This is something Thoth said clearly. Intention isn't in what you say. It's in the energy that sustains what you say. Perhaps now you understand why so many techniques fail, why so many affirmations don't work. Because it's not about repeating phrases. It's about transforming the field from which those phrases arise. And that's not done with force. It's done with presence. It's done with silence. It's done with truth. But there's something more. Something few have the courage to face. Thoth said there's a force behind all this that's constantly at work. A force hidden within language, sound, and words. And it's through this force that vibrational programming is reinforced every day. But it's also through this force that it can be undone. This force will be the subject of the next part. And what it reveals could change everything you think you know about your own vibration. Are you ready to hear what has never been said out loud? Have you ever wondered why certain words come alive, while others disappear the moment they're heard? There's a subtle yet profound difference between speaking and vibrating. And it's precisely in this space between sound and intention that humanity's most neglected power resides. Conscious speech. Thoth taught that the word was not just a form of communication. It was a tool of creation. In his emerald tablets, he stated that each word carried with it a vibrational geometry, a code that, when uttered, not only filled the air but also altered the very structure of the energy field of the speaker and of the listener. But why does this seem so far removed from today's reality? Why have words been emptied, repeated soullessly, transformed into noise, into performance? What happened to the power of the word? The truth is, we've been taught to speak without presence, to repeat formulas, to produce speeches, to memorize statements that mean nothing unless they're accompanied by an authentic vibration. The world has become accustomed to words without energy, and that's why they don't change anything. Because they carry no intention. They don't originate from silence. They don't arise from the center. When you say, "I am strong," but vibrate fear, the word has no power. It conflicts with the field, and in this conflict, the real vibration wins. Because the universe doesn't respond to the surface, it responds to the vibrational origin of everything. And that's why many practices fail, because they try to change the external without realigning the internal. When was the last time you spoke something that truly came from your center? Not from your mind, but from your deepest vibration. When was the last time you allowed the word to emerge as an echo of your truth, not as an attempt to manipulate reality? Thoth said that words are sacred, that each sound, when emitted with full awareness, acts as a direct command over subtle matter. And he warned, words are vibrational seeds. When you say something with true intention, that vibration continues to resonate in invisible layers of your field. And more than that, it shapes the field around you. It creates bridges, it opens pathways, it undoes blockages, but only if it's true. Why then do we insist on repeating empty words? Because we've been taught that repetition is enough. That's simply affirming something enough to make it real. But this is just the surface of the practice. Repetition without emotion doesn't reorganize anything. It's like trying to light a flame with wet twigs. You can persist, but the fire won't grow. Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever tried to change something with just words and realized everything stayed the same? This doesn't mean the words don't work. It means they weren't vibrating. And without vibration, there is no transformation. Thoth called this the illusion of sound, when sound exists but carries no consciousness. And he said this is one of the greatest delusions of modern humanity, believing that speaking is the same as creating. Speaking can be noise, but creating requires silence, intention, and vibrational coherence. True creation arises when the sound you emit resonates with what you feel, think, and are. How can we break this pattern? How can we give power back to words? The answer lies in returning to their origin: silence. It is in silence that words are prepared. It is in silence that vibrations align. It is in silence that intentions are purified. Speaking without first becoming silent is like shooting without aiming. It may seem like action, but it is merely distraction. Now stop for a moment and breathe. Close your eyes and think of a word you've been using frequently. It could be anything: love, gratitude, courage. Now ask yourself, is it vibrating when it leaves your mouth? Does it carry truth or just desire? Is it connected to your emotions or just your intellect? This simple exercise reveals something profound. Most of the words we use every day don't pass through our vibrational center. They live on the surface of the mind. They are automatic, reactive, disconnected. And because of this, they don't create. They just take up space. But Thoth also taught that this can change in an instant. All it takes is awareness. All it takes is presence. All it takes is a genuine desire to make the words sacred again. And this begins with small gestures, with silence before speaking, with listening before responding, with the careful choice of the sounds we put into the world. Imagine the impact of a world where words were uttered only when they carried intention, where silence was more respected than speech, where every sound was a blessing, a tool, a vibrational bridge. This is not fantasy. It is return. It is what Thoth called the sacred use of the verb. And why is this so important for your vibration? Because every word you utter echoes in your field. If it's incoherent, it generates noise. If it's dense, it generates heaviness. If it's untrue, it fragments the field. But if it's true, it organizes. It heals. It expands. And this is the point where the vibration begins to change, not only within you, but around you. Because what you emit begins to modify everything that comes into contact with your vibration. But what if I told you there was a form even more powerful than the ordinary word? What if Thoth had revealed that there are sounds that are not spoken, but intoned? Sounds that not only carry a frequency, but are the frequency itself in audible form. Sounds that, when emitted from the center, reorganize such deep layers of the energy field that a single conscious emission can cause transformations that no repetition can bring about. These sounds exist. They have been preserved in secret traditions, not because they are magical, but because they require purity to function. They are not words. They are portals. And Thoth said that, Among them all, there is one that contains the solar frequency, the frequency of awakened consciousness, a sound that should not be repeated without preparation, a sound that requires no force, only alignment. Are you ready to hear this sound? Not with your ears, but with your field. Because what comes next isn't a sequence of letters. It's a vibration that needs to be felt before it's spoken. And once it's spoken, nothing around you will remain the same. For centuries, sound was treated as something ordinary, a physical phenomenon, a vibration in the air, a natural consequence of speech or movement. But Thoth always warned that this was a superficial view. For him, sound was a living entity, an expression of consciousness itself in action. Not just vibration, but vibrant intelligence, a vehicle capable of piercing the layers of matter, penetrating the invisible, and reordering anything out of balance. And that's why not every sound is created equal. Just as not every word is true, not every frequency vibrates with the same impact. Some sounds pass, and there are sounds that linger, that leave a trace in the field, that reorganize the mind, that touch regions of the being that no rational explanation can reach. And among these sounds, there is one that has been preserved for millennia, a solar sound, primordial, revealed by Thoth as the key to reconnecting human beings to their original vibration. This sound isn't a secret in the traditional sense. It's not hidden because it's forbidden. It's hidden because most people have lost the ability to hear it. Not with their ears, but with their ears. It's like a radio station that continues to broadcast its frequency, but whose tuning has been lost. And when someone tunes in again, the impact is immediate. There are accounts of this sound in Egyptian, Vedic, Tibetan, and even Mesoamerican traditions. It's referred to by different names, but everyone agrees on one point. It's a sound that shouldn't be used lightly, because it's not just vibration, it's activation. It awakens parts of the energy field that were dormant, and once awakened, they don't go back to sleep. This sound is RA, not as a name, not as a symbol, but as a frequency. RA is not pronounced, it is chanted. RA is not spoken. RA is vibrated, with the chest, with the center, with the soul. RA is not an ordinary mantra. It is not to be repeated mechanically. Its power lies precisely in the opposite. It only needs to be uttered once, if with full presence. Does it seem far-fetched? Does it seem impossible? Modern science has already begun to approach this understanding. Studies in vibrational physics and cymatism show that certain sound frequencies have the ability to reorganize sand particles, water droplets, and even cellular structures. In 2008, scientists in Japan demonstrated that specific sounds could alter the molecular structure of water. And since the human body is composed of over 70% water, imagine what a coherent frequency can do when emitted consciously. Now, go beyond biology. Think about the vibrational field. Think about the emotions, the thoughts, the memories you carry. All of this is also made of frequency. RA, when intoned with total alignment, doesn't just act on the body. It penetrates the entire field. It's like a wave of light that penetrates dense layers, dissolving old vibrational patterns, stagnant memories, forgotten pain. And it doesn't do this by force. It does so by resonance. Thoth said that the power of RA lies not in its volume, but in its purity. You can shout and nothing happens. You can whisper and the entire field trembles. Because what activates the power of sound is not external intensity, but internal coherence. RA only vibrates when the one emitting it has silenced all internal lies. And that's why it's so transformative. Because to truly intone RA, one must be clean, not morally but vibrationally. Imagine someone who has spent years carrying guilt, fear, and insecurity. Years emitting frequencies of scarcity, doubt, and frustration. Now imagine this person, after a process of deep silence, alignment, and presence, intoning RA for the first time. This person's field, previously fragmented, begins to reorganize. The energy centers, as if awakening from a deep sleep, align. The mind quiets. The body relaxes. Not because something magical has happened, but because the correct frequency has finally been emitted. In ancient Egyptian rituals, Priests spent days fasting and meditating before chanting this sound, not out of superstition, but because they knew that the vibration of RA reorganizes everything. And that reorganization also implies exposing what was hidden. When RA is chanted, what is misaligned emerges. Unresolved emotions can surface. Repressed thoughts can be illuminated. But instead of causing chaos, it brings liberation. Because the field understands. Now it is safe to release. Now it is safe to heal. Tibetan monks in similar practices used the sound AH as a channel for the same principle. But what few know is that RA and AH are sister vibrational expressions. Both point to the solar center, to the point of conscious creation within the being. But RA, as revealed by Thoth, is the frequency matrix, the original vibration that connects the human to the creative source without intermediaries. And most strikingly, RA doesn't need to be repeated, because the field, once reorganized, doesn't return to its previous state unless the individual recontaminates it with old patterns. This is why the ancients avoided excessive use. Repeating RA after consciously vibrating it was like trying to turn on a light that was already on. Besides being useless, it created unnecessary noise. The practice, therefore, wasn't about repetition, it was about sustaining the vibrational state achieved after RA. And this was done with silence, presence, and truth. But how do you know if you're ready to chant RA? The answer is simple and straightforward: when the desire to chant disappears. Because as long as there's desire, there's still ego, there's still expectation. RA can't be a goal, it's a consequence. It arises when the field is ready, when you're no longer seeking change, but being change. When the vibration of who you are is so aligned with the source that the sound simply happens. Thoth said that AR is not a technique, it's a state. And like any state, it cannot be forced. It can be prepared. It can be nurtured, but it cannot be controlled. Those who try to control AR turn it into noise. Those who allow it turn it into a portal. There is an ancient story told among the initiates of the Temple of Anu. A young apprentice, after years of silence, finally felt the call to chant RA. He went to the center of the temple, took a deep breath, felt the sound rise in his chest and let it out. The instant the sound filled the space, the birds fell silent. The water in the ritual vessels vibrated. The air seemed denser, and the young man himself fell into deep meditation. When he awoke, nothing had changed around him, but everything was different within him. He was never the same again. Not because he chanted RA, but because he became worthy of RA. This is what needs to be understood. RA doesn't transform because it's magical. It transforms because it demands a purity that, when achieved, is already transformation in itself. RA is merely the echo of this vibrational transformation. It is the sound of coherence, the sound of origin, and therefore it can only be chanted from the center. Now stop for a moment and breathe. Don't try to understand. Just feel. Do you feel the call? Do you feel something inside you move just at the thought that a single vibration can change everything? Not as a theory, but as a real practice? Then know, if you've come this far, it's not by chance. You are being prepared. And when you're ready, RA won't need to be taught, it will emerge. And when it does, it won't be just you who will hear it. The entire universe will recognize your new frequency. And it's precisely at this point that the next question arises. After activating such a powerful vibration, how do you sustain it in a world that constantly tries to pull you back into old patterns? The answer lies in practice, but not in ordinary practices. In vibrational practices that keep your field elevated even in the midst of chaos. And that will be the next step. Sustaining a high vibration is perhaps the greatest challenge for those who have awakened. Because awakening is an instant. But sustaining this state, in a world vibrating with noise, requires full-time awareness. After chanting RA, or accessing any frequency that profoundly reorders your field, what follows is not just lightness, it's responsibility. Because now you know, now you feel, and nothing can be ignored in the same way again. Thoth said that keeping the vibrational field clean is like keeping a flame burning in the wind. It's not about protecting with fear, but cultivating with wisdom. The field, once reorganized, enters a new type of sensitivity. It perceives noise even before the rational mind recognizes it. It feels the weight of unnecessary words. It captures the imbalance of chaotic environments. It reacts more intensely to food, sounds, images, and conversations. And this isn't fragility, it's refinement. It's a field that has begun to function with greater precision, but the world remains the same. The traffic still exists. The demands still come. Distractions still surround you. And it is in this context that true practice reveals itself. Sustaining your vibration despite the situation. Maintaining connection even amidst chaos. This doesn't mean running away from life, isolating yourself, or striving for perfection. It means choosing, moment by moment, to nurture the vibration you desire to live. And this choice manifests itself in small actions, in decisions that are almost invisible, but that accumulate a powerful effect throughout the day. You can feel it clearly within a few days. You wake up centered. Your body feels light. Your mind is calm. Your vibration is high. But all it takes is a conversation without presence, a piece of news filled with fear, an automatic comparison with someone else's life, and the field begins to lower. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to disconnect. And before you know it, you're agitated, impatient, reactive. The field has closed, your vibration has dropped, and everything seems harder. But it's not the world that's changed. It's you who's moved off center. This is why Thoth insisted. The center must be cultivated every day. And this is not a metaphor. It's a real vibrational process. Every time you breathe consciously, you reinforce the axis. Every time you choose silence over automatic reaction, you re-establish the field. With every word spoken with presence, you anchor the vibration. These are not grand gestures. They are simple practices that, done consistently, become solid structures. Thoth spoke of 4 pillars to sustain vibration: breath, nature, words, and visualization. And none of these elements are symbolic. They all act directly on the field. Breathing, when done with presence, reorganizes the nervous system. It brings you back to the present moment. It lowers your brain frequency. It aligns body and mind. And more than that, it cleanses the field of accumulated energy residue. Breathing consciously is like taking a vibrational bath. Contact with nature doesn't have to be a retreat. Just walk barefoot on the ground, touch a tree, observe the movement of the clouds. Nature vibrates in coherence. And when your field touches this coherence, it tends to rebalance naturally. You don't need to understand it. Just be there. The word, as mentioned, is creative, but it is also stabilizing. When you use heartfelt affirmations, not automatically repeated ones, you anchor the desired vibration. Phrases like "I am presence" or "my energy is free" function as vibrational commands, but they must come from the center. There must be truth in what is said. Visualization is the bridge between emotion and frequency. When you imagine, with true emotion, golden, white, and blue lights surrounding your body, you are sending vibrational commands to your field. Science has shown that the brain doesn't distinguish between a real experience and one imagined with emotional intensity. In other words, your vibration responds to what you truly visualize. Now, this all seems simple, and it is, but it's not easy, because the modern world was built to break your coherence, to interrupt your center, to occupy your time with urgencies that aren't yours. And in this scenario, staying vibrationally intact is an act of silent rebellion. It's choosing every day not to give in to automatism. It's noticing when your frequency starts to drop and acting immediately. But there's something else, something more subtle. Even with daily practices, you may feel that something still drains you, something that seems invisible but that saps your energy. And that something, according to Thoth, is the environment, the surrounding field, the people, the objects, the sounds, the smells. Everything vibrates. And your field constantly interacts with these external vibrations. A disorganized, stuffy environment with broken objects, intense noises, or dense memories directly interferes with your energy field. You've felt it. You've walked into a place and felt strange, heavy, tired. Or you've been near someone and, without knowing why, your energy plummeted. This isn't imagination. It's vibrational resonance. And if you don't take care of your surroundings, it becomes a constant drain. Therefore, a fundamental part of vibrational support is creating a coherent space, an environment that vibrates as you wish. This doesn't mean luxury. It means order. It means beauty. It means cleanliness. A clean space vibrates high. A beautiful place organizes the field. Harmonious sounds uplift. Natural aromas connect. Natural light expands. Plants transmit life. Crystals stabilize. All of this is real. It's not esotericism. It's vibrational physics applied to everyday life. And most importantly, this isn't about isolation. It's about grounding. When your home vibrates high, it becomes a recharge base, a place where your field realigns. And so, even if you need to leave and face chaotic environments, you know you can return to a point of balance. This changes everything. Now think, how many times have you tried to raise your vibration but your room was too heavy? How many times have you tried to meditate but there was noise, clutter, or intense artificial light? It's not about perfection, it's about coherence. The field needs support, and you can provide that support through your environment. But even with all this, practices, environment, awareness, there remains a challenge: relationships. Because no matter how high you vibrate, you live in contact with other fields. And these fields are not always aligned. Reactive, negative, controlling, manipulative people, they all have a vibrational impact. And the more sensitive you are, the more you will feel it. And there is no way to avoid human contact. But there is a way to change your vibrational posture in the face of it. Thoth said that true protection isn't escape, it's presence. When your field is intact, it doesn't absorb easily. It radiates. And those who radiate influence. The secret isn't avoiding dense people but not resonating with them. Keeping your frequency so stable that others feel it, but don't touch you. This takes practice. It takes maturity. It takes compassion. But it's possible, and that's the crux of it. Sustaining a high vibration is possible, but it requires choice. And conscious choice requires presence. Presence is the seal of everything. It's what prevents us from falling. It detects the onset of imbalance. It corrects the course before everything goes out of alignment. Presence is the guardian of the field, and it can only be cultivated now, never later. You've come this far. You've been silent. You've chanted. You've reorganized. Now it's time to sustain. And this, more than a technique, is a lifestyle, a vibrational life. A life in which everything you do, think, feel, and choose is aligned with who you've decided to be. This life is possible. And it begins with your next breath. But there's still one final challenge, a detail many overlook, something that, if not understood, can ruin everything, even after all this progress. And that's what we'll talk about in the final part. How to seal your frequency definitively so that it becomes not just a passing state, but your new vibrational nature. Getting here wasn't easy. Layers were dissolved, truths rediscovered, silences revealed more than 1,000 words. You crossed the veil. You felt what few have the courage to feel. Vibrating from the source requires surrender. Sustaining this vibration requires discipline. But there is one final key, one final seal. Because even when the sound has been intoned, the field has been reorganized, and presence has been cultivated, there is still a silent factor that determines everything: decision. And it is at this point that the vibrational future of those who walk this path is defined. It is in the silent commitment, in the intimate and non-negotiable yes, that the vibration becomes permanent. Thoth said that the most powerful moment of the journey is not awakening. It's the choice to stay awake. Because the world will continue to offer shortcuts. Pain will continue to try to pull you back to the old answers. And that's where many fall. They think awakening is an end, when in fact it's the birth of a new kind of commitment, not to the world, not to the old rules, but to your vibration, to your essence, to what you already know you are, and once you know, there's no going back. You can try to forget, deny, silence, but the vibration of truth, once accessed, never completely silences. And this decision doesn't happen on an altar. It happens on a difficult Monday, in a moment of frustration, in a conversation that challenges you, in the moment when everything seems to be falling apart and you still choose not to lower your frequency. That's when true power reveals itself. Because power isn't about controlling everything. It's about not losing yourself when everything seems out of control. It's about knowing how to return, knowing how to breathe in the midst of the hurricane. It's about transforming chaos into a vibrational laboratory, where you test yourself, realign yourself, and affirm, I remain. But how do you turn all this into action? How do you make this journey a reality in your daily life? This is where the plan comes into being, not as a rigid rule, but as a support structure, a vibrational architecture for your day, a way to keep alive, at every step, the memory of what you've already accessed. Because without practical application, everything is lost, and the energy returns to its original state. Therefore, the following plan is more than a list. It's a living ritual. First, start your day in silence. Before checking your phone, before talking to anyone, sit for 2 minutes and just breathe, with your eyes closed. No expectations, just feeling your field. This is like opening the door for the right vibration to enter. This simple gesture prevents you from starting your day on autopilot. And more than that, it allows you to choose your vibration before the world chooses it for you. Second, choose a word for your day. A single word that represents the vibration you want to sustain. It could be clarity, courage, lightness, focus, confidence, serenity. Write this word somewhere visible. Stick it on the wall, set it as your desktop background, repeat it mentally. And whenever you can, breathe and mentally repeat this vibration. This isn't about mental suggestion, it's about vibrational grounding. Third, take care of your environment. In the morning, open a window, let the light in, organize your space. Vibration relies on what's visible. A chaotic environment sustains a cluttered mind. Start with your desk, then your bedroom, then your body, and notice how this shifts your center. The energy around you is either your ally or your invisible saboteur. Fourth, practice strategic silence. Choose 3 moments of your day to say nothing, not respond to messages, not comment, not react. Just observe, in silence. This sharpens your field. Because the word that emerges after silence always carries more power. And because silence is where vibration is organized. Noise depletes, silence regenerates. Fifth, use water as an ally. Whenever you feel your vibration starting to drop, wash your hands. Take a deep breath. If you can, take a conscious shower. Imagine you're washing not only your body, but also the vibrational residue of the day. Water is a conductor. It carries away what you choose to release. And each shower can be a ritual of return, a new beginning. Sixth, before going to sleep, close your eyes and give thanks. But don't do it automatically. Choose a single moment of the day that touched you, something small, a glance, an idea, a pause. Relive that feeling and say mentally, this is the frequency I want to multiply. This creates a vibrational anchor for your sleep, and sleep is the portal where energy crystallizes. Seventh, and perhaps most important, create a weekly moment of reconnection, a space just for you. It could be in a park, in your room, listening to music, in silence, in prayer. But let it be a moment when you stop and ask yourself, how is my vibration today? Because without this listening, the noise of the world begins to speak for you. And the world always speaks louder when you forget to listen to yourself. And there's more. Keep a vibrational journal, not just any old journal, but a space where you can record how you felt each day, what elevated your energy, what drained it, what decisions you made from your center and which were born of fear. This brings awareness, and where there is awareness, there is the possibility of choice. These practices are simple, but when done with truth, they reorganize everything. Because your energy field doesn't need grand rituals, it needs coherence. And coherence is when what you feel, think, say, and do are in tune. When your internal vibration begins to shape your external vibration, not the other way around. When your frequency stops being reactive and becomes a source. And even if you make a mistake, even if you fall, even if you forget for a few days, remember one thing. The field doesn't judge. It only responds. And because of that, you can always return. Always. At any moment. The original vibration never fades. It just waits for you to return. Like an old friend. Like a flame lit in the dark. Like the truest part of yourself. Thoth taught us that the true secret isn't in the information. It's in the vibration you sustain with what you already know. You can read 1,000 books, watch 1,000 videos, but if you don't vibrate differently, nothing changes. Therefore, knowledge needs to descend from the mind to the field. It needs to become breath, action, word, choice. Only then does it become real. Only then does it become you. And now you know it. You didn't just understand. You felt it. You lived this journey. And even though it seems like it was just a video, you activated something. A seal was broken. A memory was awakened. And it won't go away. It's done. It's vibrating. It's calling for expression. So look at yourself now. Not as someone who seeks, but as someone who has already found. Because everything you need is there. Inside. Ready to be lived. Ready to be shared. Ready to be sustained. You just need to remember. Repeat. Reorganize, breathe, choose, vibrate, and most of all, remain present, remain aware, remain free. And it all starts now. If this content touched you in any way, I invite you to continue this journey with us. Subscribe here on the Deep Psyche channel. This helps us spread this vibe to more people. Like the video if you felt it resonated. And if you'd like, share in the comments what you've experienced throughout this journey. You can do so anonymously if you prefer. Each experience can be the mirror that turns on someone else's light. Gratitude for being here. You are the frequency, and the world feels it when you vibrate differently.